All right, welcome to episode 51 of Dads and Ed. We have passed the 50 threshold. I suppose that means we're on the downhill slide. We're in our golden years. I don't know any other. We should probably sign up for AARP. Saw a commercial about that the other day.
Is it 50 is like the new 30, right?
Okay, that's cool. Is there an AARP for podcasting?
I'm not sure.
We'll have to look that up. Maybe that's how we can make some money off this.
Yes.
My name is Josh Allen. I'm a tech integration specialist at Lewis Central in Council Bluffs, residing on the other side of the river in Nebraska. Three wonderful kids, all starting baseball at the same time, it seems like. That
Yeah.
perhaps starts up this week, and then one on the way. So, looking forward to a highly educational guest tonight. We are going to learn something new, guaranteed. It always happens when Sean Nash is around. We were just joking about his Twitter stream. If you look, it's wrestling, and a whole bunch of words that we can't pronounce that have nothing to do with wrestling. So, sure to be a
No.
fantastic evening. Sean is one of the most down-to-earth guys that you can ever meet, and just a phenomenal guy. So, looking forward to that. Devin.
Yeah, so I'm Devin Schoening. I'm instructional technology program lead in Council Bluffs, Iowa, for Council Bluffs Schools. My wonderful wife is in the other room. She and Claire, our youngest, are in there reading something. And Gracie just got home from practice, got home from school. I just picked her up at 8. So, everybody's busy here too, and that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're right, Sean's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to having Sean on and learning all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, like Devin said, we're all busy. The third wheel of the show is frantically making his way back from a meeting in downtown KC. So Brent should be joining us here in a little bit. We don't carry insurance on any of our hosts, so hopefully Brent drives slowly, obeys all traffic signals, and gets back safely.
Yes.
If Brent wants to catch any of the show later, he can always tweet at Dads and Ed. Follow that on Twitter. Use the hashtag Dads and Ed. Check us out on Google+. He can also go to dadsanded.podbean.com or subscribe in iTunes. If you miss part of the show, like Brent, because you're at a meeting, go ahead and subscribe. You'll get it in your iTunes tomorrow morning. Everything will be great. We are a wonderfully proud member of the Edu Podcast Network, which we're actually going to talk a little bit about later.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave you with that. That's a little tease to stick around for a little while. So we talked a year ago, I remember this, about how wonderful this time of year is, sports related.
Yep.
It is March Madness was last week. Villanova upset, probably, maybe we can call it an upset. 2-1.
Yeah.
A school that's won one championship versus a school that's won 5 or 6, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So Villanova beats North Carolina. It's the beginning of baseball season, it's the beginning of a even number year where the Giants win the World Series, correct?
That's right. Mark it down.
Twins, I don't think have won a game yet. Which, being a fan of an AL Central team, I'm excited about. At least we're not in the basement this year.
That's right.
And it's also one of the most well-known, most well-respected golf tournaments in the world, really.
Yeah.
Which is the Masters, which took place over this last weekend. Jordan Spieth, who is up-and-coming golfer, 22, 23 years old, 22.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Won the Masters last year, made a gazillion dollars golfing last year.
Mm-hmm.
Goes into the final round ahead. He had been leading for, was it 7 rounds in a row?
Yeah.
7 rounds in a row. He starts the back 9 with a 5-shot lead.
Mm-hmm.
There is an unnamed guest who, a former guest of the show, who Devin and I are in a Voxer group with, who said in that Voxer group, well, it looks like Jordan Spieth has this all wrapped up. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He speaks Canadian, so that may have not been exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect that this is all wrapped up. So in the matter of about 3 holes, all of a sudden Jordan Spieth finds himself 3 shots back and ends up losing the Masters in the last 9 holes.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a 3-hole run like Jordan does.
Yeah.
The difference between Jordan and I is I don't have the other, 54 holes or, however many he played over the weekend. Those 3 holes happen all the time. Has there ever been a harder couple holes to watch? I mean, there's plenty of golf. Van de Velde comes to mind.
Yep.
British Open, right?
Yep. And there have been rounds, Greg Norman at the Masters in '96, but he played like that essentially the entire round. It was from hole 1 through hole 18, where he just didn't play well and kind of choked the whole way through. This was the weird thing about this, and I think the people who watch it, and if you listen to kind of golf folks, say that Jordan Spieth kind of got away with some things, especially on Sunday. His ball striking wasn't real crisp, wasn't great, but he was magic around the greens and made all kinds of putts, especially on that front 9. But I don't know if I remember a time in a major tournament like that, and a guy who is always rock solid, to go birdie, 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 birdie to finish the front 9, to then go bogey, bogey, quad.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen the turnaround that stark. A guy who is leading the tournament by 5 and is, even after the 2 bogeys on 10 and 11, that wasn't the end of the world by any means. He's still up by 3. To then go have that quad on 12 was just crazy.
Yeah. You feel bad for the kid because he, I was listening to, I think it was Mike and Mike this morning. They're kind of comparing him and Tiger, which is a natural comparison for better or worse. But they said what stands out with Jordan is that he will sit there and honestly tell you, this is what I did wrong.
Yeah.
And like you said, that, ball striking was good, and all of a sudden just not making smart decisions. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I read, that whole thing about the honesty, and Jordan kind of wears his emotions. They said, I think I heard one of the announcers over the weekend say not on his sleeve, but directly on his face and what he says. But apparently he turned on the 12th, turned to his caddy and said, "I think we're collapsing." Like,
that's not good. When you know it's
about
coming.
as honest an assessment as I think you could make of what was happening at that moment. Is he turned and said, "I think we're, buddy, I think we're collapsing." And for that hole, you just did. And you look at the guy and you think about, if you hit one in the water, so be it.
Right.
It happens. You don't want it to happen on the back 9 on Sunday at the Masters, but it happens. Yeah. But to then chunk the next one into the middle of the creek and then hit the next one into the bunker was, I just don't know. So the question becomes, do you ever, I can't remember who we were talking about this, said, do you ever come back, not come back from that? He's going to be great. He's a young kid. He's going to be a great golfer for a long, long time. But do you ever get away from that? When they show, top 10 collapses on ESPN, on SportsCenter, that's going to be one of them, probably from here for a long, long time.
Yeah. And you think about, everyone said the same thing about Tiger, after he got into the trouble with his wife, and he'll be back. He'll still be back. And now that's starting to turn. And I hope the same thing doesn't happen to Spieth. I hope that, like you said, he does, come out of it. But golf, I feel like golf is such more of a mental game than the other ones, and it's you and nobody else.
Well, and that's the thing. You talked about Tiger, mentioned Tiger a little bit earlier. There's the big difference right there. When Tiger was young, even, and all the way through until this whole thing happened with his personal life falling apart, that never happened to Tiger.
Yep.
Tiger did not do that in all the years of playing in majors, especially. And the ridiculous stat, I don't even know what it is off the top of my head, but when he's holding a 36-hole lead or a 54-hole lead and percentage of wins, that didn't happen. Tiger didn't hit the ball in the water and score a quad on the back 9 on a Sunday.
Right.
And again, not necessarily saying, Jordan Spieth isn't great, because he is. He is a great golfer, and he will be for a long time. But I think it speaks to the greatness of Tiger when he was in his prime, that even when he was young, the Masters in '97, and then you get into 2000, '99, 2000, 2001, where he's winning all those majors. he did not have those moments.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
Thank you.
Yeah, every day you get one.
I noticed on Twitter, Brandon Tim, who's been paying attention to the show a little bit, said he's kind of excited about joining on Wrestling Night. Even sent a little congratulations to Shawn's way on the Missouri kid. He's not a kid, I guess, probably. Missouri guy who's made it to the Olympic, winning at the Olympic trials. So there you go, Brandon. A little wrestling talk. Josh and I know nothing about it.
No, so glad that you're here, Brandon, to help out with that.
That's right. We're gonna need some help.
All right, let's move on. I'm gonna turn Devin down because he's echoing again. I'll turn you back up and it might fix it. Google Hangouts are kind of funny like that. So to my dad moment of the week, I mentioned that it is becoming baseball season around our house, and our two oldest play. But this is how busy this week has become. I noticed that a handful of games are going to line up where my son and my daughter are either playing or practicing at the same time. So I said, all right, well, let's just go get another helmet because they've just been sharing a helmet and it's been fine. So I had to take my 5-year-old to local sporting goods shop to buy a new helmet right after dance. So she walks in her tutu, trying on a baseball helmet. So that is how busy our life has become. I absolutely love it, but it was kind of funny to have her in that outfit in the sporting goods shop tonight. So, Dad moment of the week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's Dad of the year like that.
I mentioned earlier that Gracie just got done with school. She's our oldest. She's in 6th grade, which is middle school here. Just got done. We got home, picked her up at 8 o'clock. She hadn't been home from school yet, and it's actually kind of cool. I mean, she's part of they're doing a little musical of The Little Mermaid, and 6th graders can't necessarily be they can't have a part in the musical, but she's part of the chorus, so they do a lot of the singing and stuff, and so it's been kind of cool to see her get all into that. So the unfortunate thing is, I think we've talked about this before, that the things that the kids get really excited about and into at school tend to be these extracurricular things. This one where it's a great thing. I think they're learning all kinds of responsibility and learning how to be kind of part of this group and part of this team and everybody moving in the same direction. But it's been fun to see her kind of get into this, and we have performances this week. So we're Thursday, Friday, Saturday performances of the musical. So that's been what we've been doing around here. Thinking about, Aaron's been helping with creating costumes for her and part of that. So it's been kind of fun thing around here, but it does take a long time. When I have our 12-year-old get home at 8 o'clock or be done with school at 8 and been there since 7:30. That's a heck of a long day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just looking at our schedule, even with baseball, just field times and everything. We have a game that starts at like 7 o'clock at night for 5-year-olds.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's just crazy how late, some of those have to go. But
yeah,
Nate Malcolm, I want to give you a shout out too. Thanks for tuning in live. 7 o'clock at night for 5-year-olds. Hey Shawn, shut your other window that has me talking a couple seconds ago. Nate Malcolm, I want to give you. This technology stuff can be hard for Shawn sometimes. I turned you down. Hold on, let me turn your. Hey Shawn, what's up?
Hey.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
How you doing?
Oh, we're doing great, ladies and gentlemen. We are so excited to welcome to the show Sean Nash. Shawn, tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
On the losing side of a 0-6 ball game right now against the Astros. You can't win them all. I know it's early, but gee. Let's see. I am a district online learning coordinator, leading our online program here in North Kansas City schools. We probably right now have about 1,300 students enrolled We have 4 high schools, but we also have kids concurrently enrolled in this as well. And so that's pretty cool. Some kids are taking online courses as a 9th block. Other kids are taking it sort of in place of one of their blocks, maybe a first block or a last block.
Mm-hmm.
So 3rd year in North Kansas City, really enjoy working in the district. Erin and I made a switch 3 years ago. It's been good stuff. And she teaches elementary gifted. She started out in high school biology and then went to middle school gifted, and now she's grades 3 through 5, says she'll never go back to secondary.
Yeah.
You get you way more hugs this way, I think. I don't know.
Exactly.
So prior to that, in another district, instructional technology specialist, biology teacher, and a wrestling coach for a lot of years prior to that. So, dad of 2 girls, 9 and 7, Delaney and Nev. And Delaney and I actually stayed home sick today. It was not a good morning. I did not feel good getting up. I have no idea what the world had for me, but I limped my way into the office, and I was there for about 5 minutes, and Erin called and said, "Your daughter is sick."
Pick me. I'll take that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we need to address something very quickly. Mr. Catlett, you may have missed the part of the show earlier. We don't have insurance on you right now, so we will not be offended if you hang up because you got kids at home. Drive carefully.
Yes, absolutely. I got to make it home, but I couldn't miss out on Sean Nash. You said he's the most interesting guy in Kansas City.
Right, because you're in Independence, Brent. That's why I can say
I live in Kansas City.
I do have the address, at least, if nothing else.
I like that Brent feels it's necessary to do this in his car to defend himself, I think. Like, talk about Sean's the most interesting guy in Kansas City. Look at this guy.
Well,
He's driving.
I was probably thrown under the bus.
Brent, come on. You've been with us for 51 shows now.
We would never do that.
You're right, we may have.
Almost every time.
So, Sean, let's start with the whole biology thing, because really when I think Northwest Missouri, which is the area that you are in, I think aquatics and marine biology. So tell us a little bit about where your love for science is, and one of the things that I want you to get into too is, you share pictures all the time about past marine biology trips. So talk a little bit about that as well. Are you back now?
A bit of audio there.
Oh, Sean, I can't repeat what I just said. This is a one-take shot. I can't do this twice in a row. Hey, talk a little bit about your love for biology. We were joking before you came on about all the big words on your Twitter feed that we can't pronounce, and coming from Northwest Missouri, where did that love come from?
Originally, I think I was always into natural sciences. I knew in 7th grade that I was going to get a degree in biology. Don't know why that was. It was just natural sciences were always fascinating to me. My grandmother, my dad's mom, when I was in like 5th grade, when I would go over there and she would watch us, she'd subscribe to Discover magazine for me, things like that. So I think it was, it's hard to know what it was like for you, but everybody would tell me that was something that they could probably see coming. And so, you mentioned the pictures of the local stuff. I think that's when I was first a teacher in 92, 93, somewhere in there. I think back to, I had my textbook, and that was it. So it took me about 3 days to figure out that textbooks did not motivate kids. And so, back at that time, finding other resources other than that was pretty tough. You had to get in the car and drive. I mean, you had to drive to university libraries and feed, copy machines. I had dimes. I had to go to, the Missouri has a great Department of Conservation, and so there's a headquarters in St. Joe where I lived at the time. And so I would just steal everything that they had for free. I think the pictures thing. One of the things that I've always thought was really important was helping kids build some context around the lessons. And I think when your homework is read chapter 3, nobody's fired up. I mean, you're not fired up. Kids certainly aren't. And when your homework is more like a scavenger hunt, and it's more about, observing and recording and actually seeing the things around you in the natural world, when you bring that experience back into the classroom, that changes the conversation. Mm-hmm. Because then you've got a little bit, we assume kids have context for that kind of stuff, but, I taught a dual credit biology course my last years in the classroom. Actually, my wife and I co-taught that class. And, I had learned by that time in my career that it was really important to begin with what kids know. And so instead of beginning a lesson with, here's what we're doing, here's what you need to know, and me talking, by that time I'd figured out, let's find out what they're bringing to the table first. And so by that time they knew, but you think kids have been to a pond. You think kids have been to a farm. I mean, we're a generation away from that now. Mm-hmm. So many of the kids in, St. Joseph, Missouri is a town of 75,000 people. It's not rural, but it's not Kansas City. It's not what I would call urban. And you just assume that everybody's got an aunt, grandma that's got somewhere natural, if you're not just trolling around the park in the city. But really, kids kind of need an observation coach. Somebody to help look at things that are out there and go, what do you think about this? What do you see? And once they're sort of turned on to noticing things in the natural world, people are really willing to engage in a conversation about those things. So I don't know. If I were back in the classroom today, Instagram would be huge. With the kids and I, it would be absolutely huge. And it's funny because when I look back, like I did a lot of blogging in 08, 09, 2010, and it sort of tailed off, and I still have the blog, and it's still a place where I go to be long-winded and bore people. But when that started slowing down, part of the reason that was Instagram. I mean, I was actually writing more on my Instagram post than I was writing on the blog. And so it's just that was interesting too. I mean, that's just a switch to a more visual sort of key for the whole thing. But so yeah, I mean, I think it's important for kids to have something to connect to outdoors. There's a great book. Author's name Richard Louv, Louv, and the title of that book, he's got a few now, but the first book I read was Last Child in the Woods. Is the title. Coming to term, I think the subtitle is something like Coming to Term with Nature Deficit Disease or Nature Deficit Disorder, I don't know, and the subtitle sounds kind of sensationalist, but fantastic book about how we really are divorced from nature. He talks about correlating the rise of, ADD and attention deficit and things like that with, the fact that he talks about when he was a kid and how, when you were bored on hot summer day, we had nothing to do, bored, we would get through that boredom by laying on our back and watching the leaves of the trees. And I mean, it sounds a little poetic, but when you stop and think about how we might have regulated our boredom in the day, making things up, coming up with, creating rules for a game that we'd never played before, and you hope kids are still doing that today. You hope we haven't just handed them a platter of things to do, that we're always making rules. So I don't know. I think that playtime in nature is just something that I just really make sure that my kids have, for sure.
Well, that's what I was gonna go, Sean. Is maybe talk about that same thing but kind of from the perspective of a father. And if you're friends with Sean on Instagram or follow on Twitter, you do see you and your kids and your family kind of out in nature and doing all those things, and they seem to have that same kind of enjoyment or love for that maybe comes from you and your wife. But maybe talk about that from a parent perspective and what you guys try to do to make sure that your kids do have those experiences.
I mean, that's a tough thing. I mean, it's funny because, when I started going down the path of the whole instructional technology business, that was one of those things that Aaron and I, that was right about the time when we had our kids. And so it was really important for us, both biology teachers, to sort of keep that balance between a kid staring at an iPad screen and kids actually being outside and experiencing things. So I think part of it comes to, like, I don't know, kids come to you with questions and they ask you questions, whatever it's about. And we've all got life experiences, and we do the best we can with responding to whatever those questions are. But I don't think it's any secret that kids are interested in things that the people that are around are really fired up about. I mean, if they come to me with a weed from the yard, they're going to get some feedback on that. So they're either fascinated with how it connects to the whole web of life, or they're dead bored. I don't know. They seem to be interested.
Let's go make Dad talk for an hour. Go pull something out of the backyard.
Yeah.
Sean, you mentioned you're working with the online learning there in North Kansas City, but I also have seen you post a little bit about open educational resources and North Kansas City moving with this Go Open movement. Talk a little bit about why you think that's a good fit for North Kansas City, and where do you guys see it fitting in with what you're doing already?
Sure. Well, you guys all know that our teachers are doing this, and they've been doing this. When I was talking about in '92, driving around the town finding what were essentially open educational resources, and so our teachers are doing it now, and I think what we're doing in North Kansas City right now is kind of putting some structure and some organization and some professional development behind that to sort of help marry the good work that teachers are doing individually like that with, the curriculum instruction adoption process. So, it started for us really with our director of secondary came in the room, and I think there were two of us who were instructional coordinators that were in the office, and he came in after a major textbook company had left his office and had dropped a bid on his desk for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science, which had not been updated in some time. And, hundreds of thousands of dollars, he walked into our office and said, look, I can't believe that any of this information at this level is proprietary. There's got to be a better way. And so, very simply, this was like my second year, right at the end of my first year in North Kansas City. I said, well, you came to the right office. And so Mitzi and I put our heads together. That was my colleague. And we looked at, oh my gosh, middle school science is low-hanging fruit. CK12 has already got something that we can start with, and I think a lot of it was just being familiar with instructional technology and some of the major platforms that are out there. I think otherwise, when people hear you're not buying textbooks, you think you're going to get a bunch of teachers around the table and author a textbook, and ain't nobody got time for that right now. We've got dance and helmets to buy, and amen here as well. So I think teaching people, I think all resources are on a spectrum between adoption, which basically is the easiest way to handle it, where you just write a check. And there are all kinds of affordances and constraints with that, right? Like, hey, we've got our resources, but it's very expensive, there's very little buy-in, we can go on and on. On the other end of the spectrum is actually authoring your own stuff. I mean, that's fantastic. That's the ultimate buy-in, but it's just impractical. Right. So curation, and literally meaning curation, like in the purest sense, not just gathering things together, but taking a chapter on the nature of science that other people have written in another place, and reading through that and going, wow, this is great how they worded this, but our standards in our state use terms like independent and dependent variable. And this book uses responding and manipulated variable. And so, you get teachers around the room and you go, I love the way they word that, but they've got to know these other words too. And so we were able to pretty quickly that first summer really customize the products that we had for teachers. And it was their work, and they peer edited things, and then it came through our coordinator office, and now we now have 6th and 7th grade science full OER. Now we have 6th grade math, and so it looks like we will move to 8th grade science, and it's kind of it does take a lot of work, the manpower to do it right and to really have the right sort of quality control. So this is something that the Department of Curriculum Instruction and the board can sign off and say, yes, this is sort of the official way to do things. There is a human cost to it, and there's it's just one of those things that we're sort of scaling it up slowly as we go and trying to keep one step ahead of the kids. So kids in 6th grade who had those resources, and then they moved up to 7th grade, and then they're going to move up to 8th grade. Really, they don't know any way of doing that differently in their science courses. And probably, the last thing I would say is that we're not. We've been one-to-one in the high schools for some time. That predated me coming to the district for sure. And middle schools are not. We are still about 4-to-1 ratio. And so I think that's kind of inspiring to people who hadn't thought about doing this. The fact that we're doing it and we're printing resources. We're actually printing these little booklets, unit by unit, and it's something that even that is transformational to a kid, because when they're used to having a textbook, it's this thing that you can't damage. It's got to sit in the locker. It's 1,000 pounds. And so now when you've got these little booklets that are stapled and 3-hole punch, and they can annotate, they can mark them up, and they can make their thinking a little bit more transparent that way. That's been a good step for us. And then when we do get to one-to-one, hey, those resources are there. They're ready to go in digital format. So it's been great for us. And I think the biggest thing is, we've saved some money for sure. But I think the biggest thing for us is just our teachers in these projects seem to know their standards now far more intimately than they ever did before. Because when it's here's the standard, and I may have been teaching sort of my way around that standard for a while, but now when I'm helping to curate an actual official district resource for that, it really changes the way you look at, does this really get to the heart of that standard, or do we need something else? Do we need to add? Do we need to subtract? So it's been good work. It's a lot of work, but I think it's been really valuable so far.
Well, I have to mention that Brian Mercer, who you must know, didn't realize you were a celebrity. So I'm glad that we could help him point that out.
Hey, Ryan.
So that you can. I mean, this is really a resume builder for people who come on the show.
Fantastic.
Couple other
Brian is a
things.
huge supporter of our schools, very much so.
Good. Nate mentioned that Catlett, who I have muted right now, but is doing a little Matthew McConaughey. If you've seen like the Lincoln commercials, and I can see that. Those of you that are listening on the podcast, you can't see, but every now and then Catlett will drive through a lighted area, and it's very much. If you want to know, if you're watching this later, if you're listening to this later, just Google Matthew McConaughey. You don't even need to watch the show. Just Google Matthew McConaughey Lincoln commercial, and you'll figure it out. So, Nate also mentioned, agreeing about kids not natively being engaged with nature, but he also points out that many adults are disconnected with nature too. And I see this driving down the neighborhood. Is you've got kids out playing, and adults sitting there on their phones. And hand raised, I've been guilty of it too, and I am trying to do a better job of it. But I think, Shawn, you mentioned, kids are interested in what you're interested in, and I think we're part of the problem as far as what they're interested in.
No doubt.
Last thing that before we get back to the questions, Brandon Tim, again, new to the show. We let him in. He's catching up, and he's doing a very good job of keeping up with the past 50 episodes. But he also has read That Last Child in the Woods, and is a fellow science teacher. Shawn, he's pretty darn fantastic. If you get a chance to connect with him on Twitter. So we would be remiss to have a fellow Kansas City person on like Catlett. Catlett required that we ask Royals questions. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I want to talk about, you may or may not have known that the Royals won the World Series last year. I know that Shawn knows that, and anyone who's listened to this knows that Brent requires us to talk about it periodically, as Shawn puts on his KC hat. One of the things that I found very interesting, one of my step-grandfathers has been a Royals fan for years, and it was very interesting to me to watch it through his eyes. It had been 30 years since the Royals have won the World Series, and I know that you got to attend some games with your dad last year. Talk a little bit about how the season was to you, being able to share that with your dad, because really the Royals weren't very good for a long time. Let's be honest, and it's kind of like the Cubs. When it gets to be that long, it's like, man, are they ever going to win again? So talk a little bit about, being from that area. Talk a little bit about how it was to be able to watch that run, with your dad.
Huge. And, it's right now, my phone's sitting here, and the group text with my dad and my brother while the game is on is always interesting. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's been cool, too, to be, we're only an hour away, but we basically sort of watch the games together still, even when we're not in physical space. So it was cool, and I did grow up with baseball and played baseball from 6 years old on. It was always something that was going on in our house. So we had some iconic players back at the time. When you think of guys that played their entire Hall of Fame career, George Brent playing entire career in town. And so, with him going out, we had a youth movement right around 94, 95. Had a bunch of really great guys come in. It was still an exciting team. At least it felt like it could be, the potential was there. And then it just seemed like we would make moves to, buy one or two veterans late in their career, like they were going to really save it for us. And we sold off some of the young guys, and so just really frustrating. The strikes frustrated me, to be perfectly honest, and all of that happening at once. It was tough. and I'll be perfectly honest with you. Around, I think it was 2011 or 2012, maybe. Kansas City Royals did this thing, blog your way to the K, and basically they were trying to. I mean, they were aware, at least, that all of this stuff was going on. It is very interesting watching Brent right now. Sorry.
For those of you listening on the podcast, Brent has made it home safely and is in his garage. He is basically live broadcasting his entrance into the house. Hopefully Josie's in a good mood.
Can I talk or am I muted?
No, I unmuted you now.
Oh, good. Oh, okay. No, I love hearing Sean's story because having moved here, and been watching him, and he's got tickets. I don't have tickets. Like he's got prime time seats.
Notice how he's mentioning that with you on the show, Sean. I'm just. Oh, and he's got the Casey jacket on. Wow, he's not saying that he's ready to go tomorrow night, Sean. But I mean, next time the guys are back in town, he's saying he might be available.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason I got in the hangout tonight. I was hoping to get some seats,
We're not shameless at all around here.
No. No, that just back to that crazy promotion they ran, and if you're a blogger, if you're on Twitter, apply. And I thought, well, gee, why not? I filled the thing out. I didn't blog or write about the Royals or sports at all. And so it was actually funny. They chose 7 people, and we got to attend the pregame interviews with Ned in the dugout. We were on the field with the players. And it was like the week Hosmer was called up, so to be able to interview those guys and question them and take pictures with them. And then we were in the booth throughout the game, blogging and tweeting and all that business, and then attended the post-game interviews and stuff, and they got absolutely hammered that night, just mercilessly. But the movements that they were making at the time were things that were building the team that we have today, and so they showed a lot of faith in general management, a lot of faith in the manager, stuck with the plan, and they still are sticking with the plan. So, it's hard not to get behind the hometown team anyway, but when the hometown team is really definitely on the side of the fans for sure, that's can't look away.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It is an even year, though, just so you know. Even year.
Heard something about that.
Which means the Giants are probably pencil them in. So it'd be great to see the Royals in the World Series again, but it is an even year. Just saying.
Yeah.
Brent, were you going to ask something? You started to talk, and then I talked over you.
No, it's okay. I was just going to add that I've had a chance now to hear Dayton Moore twice, the general manager of the Royals, speak. He came to our district once for a leadership deal, and then for all of our leaders, and then as well in my doctorate class not that long ago. And hearing Sean talk about that story of their path and their journey and how they've kind of created what they've created is, I know I'm biased, but it's pretty cool. And it's interesting to hear him speak about the culture that he's created. And we haven't talked a lot about that on this particular podcast, but just in general, from a culture perspective, from a leadership perspective, I love what he's done with that organization and the group. And I say kids because they're young guys, and it's pretty special. And then having Gordon sign on, being a Nebraska guy myself, born and raised, and watching his career there, and that now he's stayed on board is pretty cool too. So it's pretty special, and I know we're biased and you love the Giants, Devin, but anyway, this is our podcast tonight. It's 2-1, buddy.
It's funny you mentioned too about signing Gordon on and being essentially a local guy. The other night, I don't remember, it was just a quick interview before a ball game. It was like just a 90-foot interview with Hosmer. And she was interviewing him and talking about, hey, who were your favorite teams growing up? And he said, well, the Marlins and the Yankees. And he said, well, talk about that. And he said, well, I was always a Marlins fan growing up, but then basically they started, after the World Series, they would sell off all their players. And so I became a Yankees fan. And so, that was interesting when I first heard it, but I got to thinking about that a few days later, and I think, man, there are folks who in this town who just think there's no chance that we will re-sign Hosmer when he's up for free agency. And then you go back and you hear statements like that, and I really honestly think that some of these guys feel super proud to be a part of a community team.
Yeah.
I mean, this town gets baseball. And I think, just hearing that and hearing the negativity he has around teams that don't, sort of build the way that we're building, I don't know, that throws a little extra hope out there for holding on to some more of these guys for over time.
Sean, one of the, away from sports, we could talk sports all night, but one of the reasons we kind of started this was, one was just a chance for us to hang out, but also we kind of look at this intersection of parenting and also being educators. And so one thing we always like to kind of find out from the folks we have on is how has kind of each impacted the other. So being an educator, being a teacher, being in a classroom with kids, how has that impacted you as a parent? And then kind of vice versa, as you became a parent, how did that impact the way that maybe you looked at schools or looked at teaching and learning or looked at working with kids every day? How did those two things impact each other?
I would say, right off the top of my head, I think probably the biggest factor is the fact that I did not begin having children until I was 38. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea how this would go if it was different than that. That's all I know. But I can definitely tell you that as an educator, and my core philosophy of how to coach folks through becoming powerful with their brains and learning new things, it was hard to imagine that I taught for so long prior to having children. When you've got little humans rolling around the house, it completely changes your perspective on instruction, or at least in my frame of mind it did. It was confirmation for me that the only real, true learning that happens is the learning that's created inside the mind of the learner, and it's not what's shoved into somebody from outside. And I think you see that day in, day out in real subtle ways, sort of as a parent. And so, just being a parent, no doubt made me a better educator. Like I said, I got started late being a dad, and so had been an educator for a long time. And so, I don't know, I would like to believe that I'm a little wiser at this point. Although, I don't know, man. I'm wiser, but definitely older. I'm glad somewhat that I don't have wrestlers in the house, because, man, at this age, I would be getting killed. It's more track and dance and things like that right now, man. I feel like I can handle that.
At least you don't have anything to prove when they're up there dancing.
That's right. Nothing.
You're not going to talk about your good old ballet days, huh?
No.
Well, Sean, we really do appreciate you being here. Are you able to stick around for a little bit, or do you need to run?
Yep. Nope. We'll be here.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about some things that we like, so chime in with any ideas you have as we go through. Brent, you have coming event, just in case you haven't looked at the doc. So.
Perfect.
All right, Devin is up first with the app or site of the week.
Yeah, so one that I'll share, and only because I used it recently, and it kind of changed my mind on tools like this and kind of some of those interactive video tools. So there are obviously a few of them out there, and I was if I was going to use one, I always kind of used Edpuzzle, and I may have even shared that one here before, I'm not sure. But I used Zaption the other day with some put some coaches, some of our instructional coaches, through a little lesson using Zaption, and I really liked using Zaption to create those interactive videos and places for, I always used them before as a way to, we always want to pause video and not have to remember exactly what point I'm going to pause it. but I love it for that. I loved the options that you have within Zaption to add different types of pause moments or questions. And then the thing that I really liked about it that was a little different than the others is users are able to join that via a code, via a session, kind of like in a pair deck or a classroom, something like that. So I didn't have to include, create a class account in Zaption and add all the students to it, assign it to those students. They just joined via a code, and then they were able to access that content, and I was able to pull back all the data from what they were doing. And then the other thing with that is they have the option to kind of show the video together. So it can be used as kind of a self-paced, go through the video, answer some questions, but I'm also able to watch the video with them and have them kind of interact on their own devices in this case. So I really like those couple of features that you don't necessarily have with Edpuzzle or Educanon, multiple tools that kind of do the same thing. But Zaption is the one I'll share tonight.
Well done, Sean. What's an app or website off the top of your head that is really working down there in North KC?
I would, of the three that he just mentioned for that purpose, I totally concur that one is my favorite as well. It's not really, it's not one we use a lot in our fully virtual courses, but I know teachers in blended learning use it like crazy in the classroom.
Good. All right, next up, I have Twitter follow. I teased you at the very beginning about the information about the Edu Podcast Network. We joined the Edu Podcast Network in January, I think it was. I think that was our first show back in 2016, and they are hosting a first birthday party. The Edu Podcast Network is turning 1. Such a cute little bundle of joy. Friday, April 29th. I guess we'll have another show before then. I didn't realize that. But they are going to have a live show from 7 to 10 Central Standard Time. We are not required to be there the whole time, which is great. We're going to crash the party late. I will be on there. I don't know if Devin and Brent are going to be able to join in, but Dad's and Ed will be represented probably about 9:20 or so. So once they get the kids to bed, I'm going to hop on for a little bit with Chris Nessie. So an early congratulations on 1 year. We're excited to be a part of that. EduPodNet is the email address, or not email address, Twitter account. Be sure to follow them, and you'll get the links. Like I said, they're going to do a live show. I think they're using Blab. I think that's what Chris likes to use. So we'll be on there. Sean, so we're going to do district Twitter follow later. So I'll prep you with that. So what's a Twitter account that we should follow not from North Kansas City?
A Twitter account we should follow not from North Kansas City.
And I know, so here's how this works, Sean. Every time I ask this, everyone who's on here, I got too many, I got all this, I get it. Just pick one. It doesn't even have to be education related. I'll preface it with that.
Yeah, I'm scrolling here going, I played this game for a while.
How about this? Favorite Royals Twitter account?
Oh, Salvi. Yeah.
What is that? What's his Twitter account? Is it Salvi13?
It's Instagram is the best place to follow the guy.
We'll accept that. That's an acceptable answer.
Yes. I'm going to go find it right now.
All right, well, you're doing that. Brent, are you ready with a coming event?
Yes, sir. I've got it right here.
Look at that. For those of you that can't see this, Brent will tweet out a picture to the Dadgeted hashtag later.
Yeah, so I Sean would be familiar with KC TechNet, and it's a organization down here that historically had kind of like an ed tech conference, and it kind of fell by the wayside, and I happened to be at a meeting, and kind of basically the group was like, either it's going to die out unless we get some other leadership. So myself and several other cats from around here are kind of picking it back up off the ground and revitalizing it to now call it Elevate EDU. And so on June 8th, we are hosting a summer institute for the day at William Crispin High School here in Independence. We're going to host it this time and hope that in the future it gets a little larger. But you can find out more by going to elevatingedu.org and check out the hashtag elevatingedu. And we're pretty excited about it. It's not going to be traditional EdTech conference, so there's kind of different strands and schedule to the day. A lot of really great people around the table that are helping create this new vibe called Elevate EDU. So anyway, I'm really excited about it, and it's kind of perfect timing. I was just coming from a meeting downtown at the KC Public Library with our leadership team, which is, I think there were probably 25 people there, give or take, and would love to get Shawn involved in the North KC side. We just really want to bring all districts together, particularly in the Kansas City area, but then ultimately even kind of statewide. We're an ISTE affiliate, so we have that capability as well. And so anyway, so very exciting stuff happening with Elevate EDU, and it's at Elevate EDU on the Twitters.
Perfect.
Yeah, Michelle Nibble was talking to me about that a couple weeks ago. We met to sort of talk about the Go Open initiative and get Excelsior Springs on that pathway. And so, yeah, she put in a real nice plug for that. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well. Yeah,
no, and I know Michelle is fantastic, and so there's just a lot of stuff we've kind of brainstorming up and looking forward for the future.
All right, did we figure out Salvi's Twitter account?
Salvador Perez 15.
15. All right, good. Glad we got all the important stuff taken care of now. You need to have Salvi be an inspirational speaker at Elevate EDU.
Well, that'd be awesome.
You think he's busy on June 8th?
Perhaps.
We'll see if it's an off.
Or we could have him on here. Forget Elevate EDU. Have him on here.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's possible too. I'll tweet him.
You can translate that.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be tough.
Yeah.
We made it through with Jonathan Wiley. He's got the thick Irish accent, so I think we're ready for our next step. All right, so District Spotlight, someone from our school district that we want to give a quick shout out to, starting in Council Bluffs, Mr. Schoening.
Yeah, and before I do that, I'll share too, since we were talking about players and their Instagram accounts and stuff. A good giant to follow is Hunter Pence. Hunter Pence is a fun follow on Instagram, and I'll tell you this: the reason the other night, I don't know if you saw it, but Buster Posey or Hunter Pence hit a grand slam against the Dodgers, and John Miller, who's a great announcer for the Giants, announced it and said, Giants Buster, a grand slam by Buster Posey, and it was Hunter Pence that hit it, and John Miller saved it by saying Buster Posey's best friend Hunter Pence, and so it got a lot of traction, and John Miller got some crap for it. But if you go to Hunter Pence's Instagram account for sure, and I think his Twitter account too, his bio is I'm Buster Posey's good friend Hunter Pence. So he's a pretty fun follow on Instagram, especially. I don't even know if he's on Twitter, but on Instagram at Hunter Pence is pretty classic. But my district spotlight for tonight is a fourth grade classroom, Plummer's class. Jennifer Plummer is the teacher. And she, they do all kinds of great stuff in fourth grade, and the reason I love her class, in addition to doing all kinds of wonderful things with kids, is they share like crazy. She's sharing what they're doing on Instagram. She shares what they're doing on Twitter, and I have a great idea every day about some of the things that they're able to do in that classroom, and I so appreciate her willingness and her kids' willingness to share those things with folks outside of her building. So at Plummer's Class is the Twitter account for that classroom.
All right, and I'm going to move up a grade level to 5th grade. I just tweeted out from the Dads and Ed account, Laura Nickman's Twitter account. She doesn't tweet a lot. What's really cool about Laura, her husband is the Project Lead the Way engineering teacher at the high school who does a great job. I need to look back to see if I've had him on because he'd be another great follow. But His wife just joined last year as a 5th grade teacher, also certified in Project Lead the Way, and does some phenomenal stuff with her kids and some groups that she has. Today she tweeted a couple engineering books that the kids are working on. Some of the girls in her class are doing some great stuff, and one of her hashtags was "Engineer Like a Girl." So had to give her a shout out for the great stuff that she is doing there. Catlett?
Yeah, so I was trying to think of I don't want to say the account wrong, so I'll have to tweet this after I get off the phone here, but there's several individuals at an elementary school doing some awesome stuff, and I want to highlight one of them. Her name is Jen Shust, and she's an elementary teacher at our elementary school called Cordy, and she and a couple other gals that she works with in her grade level area have just really ramped up their Twitter usage this year, and they share a lot to our district tag, and it's not just instructional technology things, which of course I think I support being the director of technology, which I do, of course, but at the same time I love to see other items that everyone's tweeting, for that matter, to our district tag, and it's kind of fun to see that take off the way it has, and it's not always just tech stuff as it is other things that they're doing, and she's been a catalyst in her building, so I want to give her a shout out. So I'll tweet off her tag. I think it's Jen_Shust, but I could be wrong.
All right. Shawn, can we pin you down for someone from North Carolina?
Carolina.
Lord, sweet Jesus. North Kansas City. Man, I was doing so good.
No, I've never been there, actually.
Yeah, move on. Let's go.
Here's the value added right here. So in our district, the absolute best way I could do this, if you want to be able to follow a whole group of teachers who are doing and sharing really cool things, I really believe that our communications department, our district Twitter account is absolutely one of the best in education, because it's not, I mean, they don't run that account like it's just blasting out really dry information, the same kind of thing you get in a press release. I mean, they follow all the teachers, and when the teachers are doing really cool stuff, they actually send it out there. So it's got a very official feel for a Twitter account, but it's also got, you know, a little bit of a different kind of a vibe, because they really do interact and retweet all the teachers. And so really I would say if you scroll down the feed at NKC Schools, let me pull that up. If you roll right down that feed, it's just at NKC Schools, you will find 5, 6, 7 new teachers to follow that are doing some really cool things.
Awesome.
That is good. I was not aware of that one, but just followed it from our district one.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, Devin.
Oh, just a quick share, just because we've been having so much Royals talk, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, and you won't be able to see it very well. I will. We had a little auction the other night at one of our high schools. I know you can't tell what that is, but that's a former guest on the show, Rob Lindquist. Yeah. And what he is holding up, I'll see if I can, you know, he's with Brian Polberg. Brian is one of he's the manager for the Omaha Storm Chasers up here in Omaha. He went to Thomas Jefferson High School, so he had people trying on his World Series ring the other night at the auction. So that was Rob, and there are all kinds of. I think they actually ended up doing a little fundraiser that way. So you could get a picture with Brian and wear the Kansas City Royals World Series championship ring, and just pay a donation to do that. So it was a pretty cool thing, actually. And you see the ring. The ring is ginormous. And they were talking about how much they have to insure it for and all these things. It was pretty cool. But I was talking to somebody tonight who actually got to hang out that night too, and with Brian, and just it was really cool to have, to hold the ring or have it on. So just thought that was cool, especially with a couple of Royals fans on with us tonight.
I'd have to work out to wear the thing.
That's right.
Well, if you notice, Rob, who does Run Iowa, it's not Powerlift Iowa, it's Run Iowa. If you've seen the picture, and obviously if you're listening to this audio, you didn't.
Right.
Rob is holding the rings in one hand, but his other hand is right underneath the hand with the rings on it. With this oh my God, do not let me drop these. So that very cool. I had seen that picture, so very good.
Pretty fun stuff.
All right, gentlemen, we've come to the end of the evening. Another fabulous guest. We may not prepare very much, but we pick some darn good guests to make us sound really intelligent. So, Shawn, really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. We'll let you get back and watch the Royals complete the comeback. I don't even know what the score is, but we'll just...
It's rough. It's good to talk to you guys again. We're all way too close for this to only be electronic, so appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks, so we will see you all then.
Awesome. See you guys.